Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. We are broadcasting live right here from our headquarters in the economic capital city, Douala. First, our major stories. A child who is less than a year old has been sexually assaulted by a 15-year-old boy. The incident that occurred in Yaoundé has left many in shock. Human rights defenders condemn what they qualify as a despicable act while calling for justice to be served. And the fight against urban disorder deprives several traders of their livelihoods. This follows a demolition exercise carried out by council agents at the Antrilise neighborhood in the Douala 3 subdivision. Stranded traders expressed dissatisfaction over this incident. Those are major stories. Stay with us for details and more. Thank you so much for staying with me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast. I am Immaculate Fogwe. We begin with a sad story where a less than a year-old boy is a victim of sexual abuse. He was sexually assaulted to death by a 15-year-old boy. This case adds to numerous cases of sexual abuse recorded in Cameroon. Innocent Azar spoke with a psychologist and she explains to us how traumatizing such incidents could be to victims. His report.
The male child, who was yet to attain 1 year of age, died from sexual abuse through the anus. The sinful act perpetrated by a 15-year-old boy is alarming in Cameroon. A psychologist, Martin Twente, says this growing social ill is unjustifiable. It shows the society is sick. The pain from this act pierces every heart and affects every domain of life.
Le mal, il est tellement profond qu'il touche toutes les couches de la société.
Martin Twente believes non-denunciation and laxity in punishing perpetrators of sexual abuse push the curve upwards. In some cases, the victims or families prefer to hide or swallow the act because of shame, whereas it is the perpetrator who has to be ashamed. In order to avoid stigmatization and mockery by staying quiet, gives the perpetrator authority to continue the act. Also, in our society, it is almost like this sexual abuse is unpunishable. The perpetrators are not haunted. They are handled lightly and allowed to do whatever they like, believing nothing will happen to them.
Où chacun fait ce qu'il veut, il sait qu'il n'y aura pas de punition, il n'y aura pas de conséquences.
For parental care, the psychologist underlines, cannot be minimized.
Il y a les parents dans les familles.
Some parents abuse their responsibilities. They do not play their role to protect their children, train them morally upright, and give them moral education, advancing different reasons.
Chacun donne ses raisons.
The society has to stand firm to abort sexual abuse. Martin Twente stresses it must begin with parents upholding their responsibilities. Judicial authorities must ensure perpetrators of sexual abuse are severely punished.
From Yaoundé, we now move to Douala, where traders of the Antrilise neighborhood, precisely at the village neighborhood in the Douala 3 municipality, are now stranded. This is as a result of a demolition exercise carried out in the early hours of today by the Douala City Council agents. A.C. Lucy Liengu was there, and she says the move is meant to combat urban disorder right here in the city of Douala. Her report.
Several shops at Antrilise village in the Douala 3 municipality reduced to nothing. This is the outcome of a demolition exercise carried out in the early hours of Thursday by workers of the Douala 3 Council.
We don't know. Every job, they're not going to sell them. We go shop now.
Most of the victims say they woke up in the morning just to see their shops being destroyed, with no information or notice from the council.
Ils cassent parce que là, ils disent que c'est sale. Ils viennent casser les gens sans les aviser.
Si elle ne fait pas comme ça, elle veut manger quoi, mon frère? Elle ne veut pas nous orienter. Nous-mêmes, on veut s'orienter nous-mêmes. Et bien encore casser.
The demolition at Antre Lycée Village has been termed injustice by the victims. I think it is only our area that has been destroyed. It seems there is someone behind this. It is clear, look at the other side. Isn't it dirty? Why just this side, which is about 500 meters square? The traders complain the destruction of their business site has a devastating consequence, as most of them depend on their various businesses to earn a living.
Les babouches habillent tout, on a cassé tout. Mais beaucoup plus les babouches, les chaussures, tout ça.
On m'a porté tous les roues. Il y avait au moins 5 roues là-bas. Avec mes petits caoutchoucs là, on a tout porté.
The demolition exercise, according to officials of the Douala City Council, is in line with the fight against urban disorder in the city of Douala, and equally in the context of the Douala Clean City operation launched by the governor of the littoral region.
A sad scene there for traders at the Antrebi neighborhood. Many of them are wishing that many other stores can be constructed and equally put at affordable prices so they can equally occupy such stores and go about their daily activities. And over to something else, elements of the Bolowa Gendarmerie Brigade recently tracked down some suspected bandits in Mekaut, that is a locality in the south region. The arrest comes after an operation carried out in the area. Residents applaud the efforts made by security officers. We have details with our reporter, Cedric Chakutio.
Guns, packet of cannabis, TV screens and motorcycles are some of the things seized from a suspected bandit. This was thanks to an operation carried out by the Gendarmerie Company in the locality of Makela in the Bolowa South region of Cameroon.
Alors, le bilan, il est impressionnant. Vous avez vu, avec la cargaison de cigarettes non autorisées, le stock de cannabis que vous voyez, les motos, l'arme de pointe.
On foot, by motorbike or by car, members of the Gendarmerie crisscross the nooks and crannies of this urban perimeter. A sweeping operation welcomed by some residents who have had sleepless nights for some days now.
Nous sommes tellement contents
We are very happy with the operation taken out by the Gendarmerie forces. At least we can now sleep because we know that we are now in security.
C'est vraiment cette opération. Nous sommes soulagés dans ce quartier. Bien sûr que c'est que ce n'est pas tout, mais aujourd'hui nous sommes soulagés. Nous remercions les forces de l'ordre.
Also caught by the Gendarmerie forces is a hard drug seller in his cargo who tries to justify himself. I had a problem of job. It is difficult to find work. Before, I used to do my small motorbike riding, but this time it wasn't easy for me, so I entered this deal. For more action and greater efficiency, the commander invites more collaboration from the population. It is essential to cooperate with us so that we can finally cut these bandits and have peace in our sectors. As the whole country is suffering from such acts, inhabitants of the locality pray that such operations should continue.
And now over to our health page. Health officials from 15 African countries under the umbrella of the World Health Organization have converged in the city of Douala to strategize on how to completely eradicate guinea worm from the African continent. Even though from the 42 African countries have been certified guinea worm free by the World Health Organization, 6 other countries continue to record cases of the disease, sustaining a fear of a possible resurgence in freed communities. Fomi Armstrong Sanda tells us more.
2007, Cameroon was certified free of the tropical disease dracunculitis, also known as guinea worm, by the World Health Organization (WHO). 12 years later, Cameroon began facing a resurgence.
We'll be coming back to this report done by Fomi Armstrong Sanda, where he says health officials from 15 African countries under the umbrella of the World Health Organization have converged in the city of Douala to strategize on how to eradicate guinea worm. This is the report.
2007, Cameroon was certified free of the tropical disease dracunculitis, also known as guinea worm, by the World Health Organization (WHO). 12 years later, Cameroon began facing a resurgence of the disease precisely in 2019, when cases were recorded in the Jere Health District of the Far North region of the country due to its proximity with the Republic of Chad, where the disease remains endemic. World Health Organization officials regret that the guinea worm still continues to plague the world, and particularly in Africa, where 6 countries reported cases of human infection this year 2023. They include Cameroon along its border with Chad, Ethiopia, Mali, South Sudan and the Republic of Chad. Health officials say that the disease is rife in disadvantaged and isolated rural communities that are essentially dependent on superficial stagnant water points not designed like ponds to provide drinking water. In most cases, the parasite is transmitted when a person or animal drinks stagnant water contaminated with infested water flies of guinea worm parasite. Although guinea worm is rarely fatal, according to health officials, infected persons may suffer from disability for several weeks or even several months. Globally, the eradication campaign has significantly reduced the number of human cases, which increased from 3.5 million annual cases in the 1980s to 13 cases reported in 2022, a reduction of 99%. From the 1998 to 2022, 42 countries on the World Health Organization African region have been certified free from the transmission of guinea worm. The meeting in Douala to strategize on how to completely eradicate the disease from the African continent brought together 9 countries from West Africa, 3 from Central Africa, and 3 from Eastern Africa.
And now out of Cameroon, voters in Madagascar headed to the polls this Thursday in presidential elections boycotted by 10 out of 12 opposition candidates and marred by weeks of violent protest, while Liberian opposition leader Joseph Boakai has a slight lead over President George Weah in the just-ended presidential elections. Malaglary is a lady with our international page.
According to the Electoral Commission, polls open at 6 a.m. local time and close at 5 p.m. for 11 million registered voters. 13 candidates are vying for the post, including incumbent Andry Rajoelina, who is seeking a second term. An election which results will be published by November 24th. If none of the candidates receive 50% of the vote, a second round of the election will be conducted on December 20th. The Southern African Development Community, the African Union and the European Union have deployed its election observers. The campaign ahead of the presidential election were overshadowed by a series of protests called by opposition leaders. A coalition of 10 out of 12 opposition candidates have called on voters to boycott the election over transparency concerns. Elsewhere in Liberia, the National Election Commission on Wednesday commenced the announcement of the run of the presidential election results. Former Vice President of Liberia and candidate of the Unity Party, Joseph Boakai, took an early lead in the first set of the results announced by NIC chairperson. According to results seen on the National Election Commission website, Mr. Boakai has received 193.041 votes, while Mr. Weah has received 187.615 votes. This is only 22% of all polling units to be counted. The first round of the election was held on October 10, with 20 candidates competing for the highest seat of power in the West African country.
And that's it for the first part of the news. Talking Point is up next. Tonight on Talking Point, I'm receiving a social commentator and political analyst, and is no other person than Sama Abang Mungwa, and we'll be discussing about Frank Biya's involvement in politics. Good evening, Sama Abang. It is a pleasure having you on Talking Point today. President Paul Biya's eldest son, Frank Biya, has been on the limelight following his decision of becoming a militant of the ruling CPDM party. He has been making several outings this year, but this wasn't the case some months back after the creation of the Frankist movement. Should such be considered as a coded message to those behind the Frankist movement to join the CPDM party?
The Frankist movement, as the name implies, is a movement on its own, which makes it different from a political party. this is not the first time we have had political movements that have been used to prompt up even the party in power. So the place of such movements cannot be overlooked. I may want to draw your attention to the existence of Press B, Shantabia's youth, and so on. And so well, we very much understand that some caliber of youth or some fragment of the youthful population would definitely want to see a break from the old order of the same CPDM faces, and I'm sure that is certainly the reason why the Frankist movement was conceived and constituted. But I think that whether we are looking at it from the point of the Frankist movement or the CPDM, it is simply children of the same home state. We are talking about people with the same political agenda. That is the perpetuation of the same Biya dynasty from father to son. Putting them together into one family, yes, I still think that it is not really very much of an issue, given that the objective is to ensure that after a Biya as a father, we will still have a Biya as a son, as the president of Cameroon.
Samabang, let's not forget that he, however, turned down the offer of being made honorary president of the ruling Cameroon Democratic Movement political party in France. According to him, everything is defined in text with regard to the party's natural candidate. This party's refusal, can such cause any panic among CPDM barons who are concerned about a possible rise to power of Frank Biya?
You know, the continuous existence and survival at the helm of the nation and at the helm of the party of President Paul Biya seems to mask very evident dissenting opinions within the party. It seems to give the impression that everything is okay and there is unanimity of opinion and objective. That is far from being the case. To me, I strongly think that the CPDM is as divided within as you would expect, especially given that there is so much heat that is being generated by the obvious after Biya succession wahala that we all are so much anticipating. Definitely, there are people who have been in the shadows of the internal cabal that makes up the party, who would actually want to see a change of atmosphere, who would actually want to see a change of personalities, a change of identity within the party, and according to them, that emergence of Emmanuel Frank Biya offers that opportunity for us to have new faces. You would acknowledge with me that when Ayijo left power, there were changes that were actually made. We knew political figures being born. We knew faces coming out. Do not forget that at the level of the Northwest, for example, the young, vibrant Paul Biya had to do away with the Fonchas and the Muna and created his own acolytes with whom he thought he could work. So in as much as it is CPDM for CPDM, it is obvious that there is a fight for positioning, because much is expected that even if it is Emmanuel Frank Biya replacing the father, there will be need for some changes at the level of those he would freely want to work with.
But then, is there a possibility of seeing a father-to-son succession as we have seen in other African countries?
In blind to reality, we saw that in Togo, when an Eyadema replaced another Eyadema. We saw that in neighboring Chad, where a Debi replaced another Debi. We saw that in Gabon, where a Bongo replaced another Bongo. We saw that in Congo, Kinshasa, where a Kabila replaced another Kabila. And we are likely to see that in neighboring Congo, Brazzaville, where a Sassou Nguesso would replace another Nguesso. And in the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, where an Obiangema would be replaced by another Obiangema. So if you were to go by the trends that have taken place and the two possible trends likely to take place in these other two named countries, then we are not far from the truth. We are not far from reality. We are not far from living the same scenario in Cameroon, where we have seen in the most recent months state machinery being put in place to already start projecting and presenting an Emmanuel Frank Biya as the likely heir apparent to his father, and the calls that are being made. One thing I want you to also bear with me, Immaculate, is the fact that all these so-called calls for the natural candidate to present himself again, it's simply just playing to the gallery and like distracting Cameroonians. Everything is being put in place. The waters have been tested, and they must have seen that Cameroonians are as docile and as gullible as we are. There is nothing that we would do. The waters have been tested and testified, and everything is certainly being put in place to ensure that the Biya dynasty, the Beti Bulu dynasty, is perpetuated from one Biya to another. The game has well been played, and the machine has been properly oiled to ensure that, for the interest of the cabal that has taken this nation hostage for these 41 years and even counting, to ensure that their interests are protected and safeguarded, I would definitely be fooling myself if I were to think that there will be another face other than Biya to replace him.
See, let's forget about the fact that he is the president's son. To you, does he have what it takes to rule a country like Cameroon? Yeah, I'm talking about his experience as far as governance is concerned.
I think that his father had been able to grow within the ranks and files of executive power in this country, which prepared him for the top job. Apart from the fact that we know him as a handsome, attractive, seductively looking young man, who is the son of the president, the eldest son, and from what we gather, Romo say he is into business, timber business. Nothing has ever been said about his academic portfolio. Nothing has ever been said about his administrative portfolio. We don't even know the company that he owns and manages for us to be able to judge his level of corporate management, for us to know whether he can translate that corporate experience into public administration. We do not know. So apart from the fact that he has the anointing of being the son of a head of state who has constituted the public administration of Cameroon into a dynasty, there is nothing to show off for that in the absence of the father, who has, I must say, failed in his own right. Cameroon could be safely transferred into the hands of a young man with little or no experience. We are simply heading to another disaster, which will be a perpetuation of what the father has led us through. So to ask me whether he has what it takes to govern Cameroon, permit me say with every assurance in me that in the negation, I don't expect anything better.
But then, many Cameroonians have been wishing for change at the helm of the presidency. Do you think it is a perfect idea that another candidate is presented by the CPDM party?
We expect, everybody will definitely expect a change. Having been cursed to have lived 41 years of my life under the same name, the same person, the same system, and a system which is rather deteriorating. I think it is the divine wish of every Cameroonian of my generation, and I'm sure the generation below me, that we should see a new face, a new dynamism, a new orientation, a new aspiration, rather than just a perpetuation or a continuity of the same routine routine system that we have been used to. It would be the wish and the dream of every Cameroonian that we see a change, but whether that change will come to pass in our lifetime is another issue for the gods to decide for us. But I think even if it were just to be a change for the sake of a change, Cameroonians would very much welcome it, as they did welcome it in 1982.
Sama Abang Mungwa, social commentator and political analyst, thank you so much for being part of Talking Point tonight. And that's what put an end to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on ETV. Thank you so much for your keen attention. Have a wonderful evening in the company of Serge Along Otto with his guest on the program, Equinoxe.